All right, hey everyone. We're back for another interview with some former XA students, alumni, I guess we could call them now. And today we have Elizabeth, I almost said Brooks, it's not Brooks, it's Elizabeth Lane, and
So
Cliff Kapka. And man, they were in the youth ministry when I first came, so that was a long time ago. So that's
we're old.
we're all
Yeah.
kind of old. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So anyway, but these videos are just to help parents to keep fighting the fight. And so we're asking former students just, hey, what are the things that your parents did well? What are some of the things maybe they could have done differently? But either way, we're just saying, parents, keep loving on your kids and keep pointing to Jesus, because it makes a difference. And so, guys, I appreciate you coming online and doing this with me. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And so do me a favor, introduce yourself, kind of tell us where you are. Well, first tell us who your parents are, so we'll make the connection to FBC Allen. And then just tell us where you are right now, you know, what you're doing, family, kids, all that kind of good stuff. And ladies first. Elizabeth, will let you go first.
All right. My parents are Peggy and Warren Brooks. And I think they have been members there since like 1980. I don't know. I was 3, so maybe like 84 or something. So a long time. And I am, we live in El Dorado, Arkansas. My husband is the pastor at Westside Baptist Church here. We've been here about 4 years.
What's up?
And, yeah. And, anyway, so yeah, we left Texas. We're in Arkansas now, but we have 3 kiddos, a 10-year-old Luke, 6-year-old Ellie, and a 3-year-old Levi. And anyways, that's what I'm doing right now. I'm just like working alongside Cody as he pastors. And then I'm on the home stretch of getting licensed in Arkansas to be a professional counselor.
Nice.
But that's where I'm at in a nutshell.
So when I came, you were going to be a senior, right?
Yeah, you came right at the end.
Right.
So,
and we have royalty. I always like to point this out. Elizabeth was homecoming queen at Allen.
Like a lifetime ago, another life ago. Yeah. But
Cliff
no,
was not homecoming queen. So
No. People will be like, "Who's Cliff?" If you ask
oh,
them.
whatever.
All right, Cliff, introduce us. Tell us who your parents are, and then introduce yourself and your whole fam.
My name is Cliff Kapka, but you said that like 10 times. But my parents are Kathy and William Kapka. They have been at the church just about the same time, I think. See, I was born in '83, so I was born into that church. So yeah, they've been there for a long time. I am I guess you can call it, I say I'm bivocational. I have a day job. I do facility management, but where I really love serving is I'm at a 5-year-old church plant. We've been there the whole time, and I've done several roles, but the one I'm in right now is I'm associate pastor of pastoral care. So just taking care of people, loving on people, all that fun stuff. So married for 10 years. We got a little 3-year-old girl, Emma. She's amazing.
Wow. And you were what grade when I came?
Oh my goodness.
You in the yet?
Yeah. We were still in that old upper room of that building that I don't even know if it's still there anymore.
Yeah, it's still there. Yeah, for sure.
Oh, really?
8th grade? 9th grade?
I think it's probably like 8th or 9th grade. Yeah. It was when the band Pray for Rain was still cool. So around that time.
I don't even know who that is.
Yeah.
Cliff, are you a year younger than Cody? I think you might have been like a freshman or sophomore.
I was probably like a freshman. I bet you I was a freshman. I was either 8th or 9th grade.
Okay.
So
we got to keep going. People are tuning out. I can feel it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh
no,
yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and both of you guys were interns of mine. That was cool too. So these are 2 of my good friends. So not quickly, just tell us a little bit about when you started following Christ. Like, how old were you? And just talk a little bit about that journey. Just give us the short version of it. Cliff, I'll let you go first.
It was in elementary school. I was actually in RAs when FBCALLEN. Do they still have RAs?
Yes, we do.
Excellent. Well, we were on a 4.5-mile hike in Fairfield, and I kept asking my dad about different things about Jesus, and we stopped on a little trail and we talked, and I accepted Christ. But that's I've always been like in the church and felt like the salvation was there. And in college, I got a little off track, to say the least. but that like I think in elementary, you know, that age is where I kind of come to know Christ. I really understood him in college. I understood what grace and what true faith was at that point.
Elizabeth?
Kind of similar. I was around, like 6 years old, and had been asking my parents questions for a while, and hearing about it from church and from them at home. And we were driving through downtown Allen, the big downtown of Allen, and pulled over into the old. I asked her, "How do I do this?" And so she whipped over and got a parking spot in the old Rodenbaugh's parking lot or parking spot, and we prayed right there and walked through it. But obviously that's just where it started. But and then kind of like what Cliff said, I started owning my faith more the older you get, like in middle school when you start making decisions for yourself. And so my rough patch was in high school, actually. And then I'm thankful, like just came through that. The Holy Spirit kept speaking to me, and people kept pouring into my life and came through it on the other side. So
very cool. Who were some, I'm going to ask about your parents in just a second, but just for people who are watching, who were some FBCALLEN members that really made a difference in your life as far as your walk with God? Elizabeth?
Oh gosh, there's a lot. There's a whole lot. Definitely, I could lump them all together of Sunday school teachers, and I mean all throughout the ages, but like primarily I can remember youth Sunday school teachers. The Kapkas were some of those, and then I know Bambi Jewel. I don't even know who's still in Allen and who's not, but she and her husband were pretty impactful in my life back then too. Cool. I think she was my senior in high school teacher, I think, but there's so many. I just know I left out a million.
No,
but.
You're good.
Yeah, I would say a lot of the teachers, so like the Potters, they were amazing. They were senior year. They were our leaders. Roy Vincent, he put a lot of time in us guys. He was amazing. And then student wise, I still think he's like, even though I'm 37, he's still the coolest guy. I feel like I really wish I knew was BJ Ferguson. He was like the cool guy when I was in youth group. So, but yeah, those guys, they were just cool to look up to. So.
And I say that just to put a plug in for volunteers, hey, what you do matters. So, your parents obviously love you a whole bunch and still love you very much. So what role did they play in your faith journey? Obviously you both, I mean, Cliff, you mentioned your dad, Elizabeth, you mentioned your mom actually kind of helping to lead you to the Lord at that moment. But talk about that, just their investment in you. Elizabeth, I'll let you go first.
Yeah. I mean, definitely invested in us. I think it's real easy for parents to like try and just let the church do that job, or think that the church is better at talking about it or better about teaching about, Christ and biblical stuff and faith walk. But so critical that it was in my home. Like I watched them walk out their faith, and they allowed me to come with them when I had like doubts or questions. And I think what was so critical about how they handled it was that they allowed it, but they corrected it. They corrected and, spoke truth, but they did it in love. Like they didn't get angry because I had questions or like, this just sounds weird. Like, how can that be, the Trinity or whatever, the things that are hard to get. So they were definitely critical because they were accessible and let me ask those questions to them. And then obviously they like are the ones that initially taught me about all of it and encouraged me. They could see me at home, like, you hear have a quiet time from your Sunday school teachers, but like they were the ones at home seeing if I was having it or not, or, seeing my behavior or my attitude when I obviously was way far away from having any relationship.
Cool. Cliff?
Yeah, I think along the same lines as my parents, they lived it out really well in front of us. And so we did not, as a family have like quiet times together, different things like that. But it was their actions. Like they were always involved in the church. And like if I had questions, like something that my parents were really good about is if they didn't know the answer, like my dad would find it. He would go and look for it, or he would steer me to people who did. I think I had a question about Calvinism or something, and my dad was like, "I'm not touching that subject," or he's just like, "I don't know." And so he was like, "Why don't you go talk to Chad about that?" And so I showed up at Chad's door and or office door. Don't go visit him at home. Yeah. But yeah, we they were really well at helping guide me to discover those things.
Good. And one of the things I appreciate that both of you said was just it was okay to ask mom and dad questions. And they didn't, I mean, maybe freaking out on the inside, but they didn't freak out on the outside.
Yeah.
And just let you have, I mean, how important, like Elizabeth, answer this, how important was it that it was okay to come to mom and dad with those doubts or with those questions?
It was really important because then, I mean, there'd be times where I'd probably wrestle with it on my own for a while before I did go to them. And teenagers, and even way back then, whenever it was totally a different world, like cell phones and access to like information was, did the internet exist? I don't even remember, but like I was gonna seek out those questions somewhere. So the fact that I had parents that I knew or that hadn't shut me down before, or hadn't gotten in trouble because my question went against what we've always been taught, allowed me to seek answers in a healthy environment instead of going to my friends or going to the internet or going to whatever was popular to find those answers that are, more than likely not going to agree with what scripture says.
Right.
Totally important. Totally important.
Yeah. So Cliff, and as far as your parents, you talked about, sometimes not having all the answers. I mean, did that disappoint you as a teenager or as a kid that didn't have all the answers, or was that more kind of like you appreciated the real? I mean, talk to me about that for a second.
I think at the time it just didn't faze me. Like, I guess I kind of understood, like my dad was an engineer, and my mom, she was a home daycare provider. Like I understood at that time, like they were not biblical scholars, and so I was okay with that. Like, it didn't affect me. It was, and I didn't even expect that. I think at the time, like, it didn't even faze me. Like, oh, my parents may not have all the theological answers to everything. Like I knew that I could get that at church. Like, I could get that around, you, Jimmy, and Chad, and Jeff. So it's really that never really bugged me per se. I don't know if it does anybody else. But.
Yeah. Well, I just the fact that they're honest with you and saying, I don't know, and I'll find the answer. And I think that's a good reminder for parents, is to say, that it's okay to not know, and you can find out together. What are some of the things, if you're thinking back on your parents and just your relationship, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be spiritual. Obviously they invested in you guys heavily spiritually. But what are some of the things that you just remember that were like, man, I'm so thankful they did this, or that they did really well in this area of being mom and dad? Obviously, not perfect, but what are some of the things that you look back and you go, they did this really, really well? Cliff, I'll let you go first on that one.
I think the thing that my parents did really well, and they still do it to this day, is they're present. Like, they show up. Like, I look back and, like, my dad, when we were kids, he was coaching all three of us. And now there's four of us, but when there was three of us growing up, all three of us, he was our coaches. So he coached my brother's soccer, my sister's soccer, then my soccer, all at the same time. And of course, Allen was small at that time, so we're all there at the soccer facility at the same time. But I look back, I don't know how I could do what they did. Like, I'm going to fail in that area, and I know I will at some point. But looking back, I remember all the positive. Like, they were just present. They just showed up. In fact, when I was in college and I ended up preaching for the first time at CAPS, I just told my parents, like, hey, I'm preaching this Sunday, not thinking anything. And when I showed up that morning, they were there in the pews. Like, they were there. They've always been there. And so that's just how they were. And it's how they still are. That's like the biggest impact for me is, and I think that's kind of go back to your question of, does it bother me that if they didn't have all the questions, is because they're there,
Mm-hmm.
like they were present, and they were okay with kind of saying out loud, I don't know the answers, but I knew that they were going to be there for me. And there was never a question. There was never a question.
That's so good. It wasn't a car they bought you. It wasn't stuff. It wasn't anything related to that. I mean, it was just their presence. That's
yeah.
That's huge. That's huge. Elizabeth, how about you?
I think two things. One, that they love me unconditionally. So when I would come to them with big screw ups, or when I would just be like a brat, or whenever I'd be great, like I knew their love for me was unchanging. Like, I mean, there was still punishment, there were still consequences. Their love didn't equal like enabling or spoiling, but I knew that that love was solid. And I don't know what really communicated that, except I guess just consistency. But, and something else, I think this is a churchy thing, but what they did really good, and I really appreciate, is church wasn't an option. So like I said, that my rough patch was in high school, and like Sunday mornings, Wednesday nights weren't an option. And so Cody and I didn't think I said my husband's name. How rude. I'm married to Cody.
We were waiting for that.
Yeah, we
so
didn't want to bring it up, but okay.
I gotta make sure he doesn't watch this, because he'll get offended. I'm just kidding. But we served in youth ministry, or he was a youth minister for about like 16 years before we moved here and are doing pastorate stuff. But so I would hear from parents all the time about, they're not coming, and we had to pick our battles. And I get that. I get picking your battles, but like, I'm so thankful that that wasn't like my parents picked like an eternal battle. Like church wasn't an option. And so what got me through that rough patch, I think, meaning my rebellion and stuff, is that I was still going to church. And so I heard truth spoken to me through different adults and peers. And, they were saying the same things my parents would say, but it was just totally different. And I believe that's what got me through to the other side of my rebellion, and still kept me in the church. Because if you get disconnected, when you're ready to like repent and turn and listen to the Holy Spirit's conviction, when you go back to the youth group that you've disconnected from, you're going to feel like an outsider and not have friends. And the devil's going to use that to get you to get out of there again.
Yeah.
So anyways, I think my parents, they did a phenomenal job on not wavering on that. That was a no-brainer for them.
That's a huge one, because that's been consistent. Like I said, we've done 3. This is our 3rd one, but every other guys and girls that we interviewed, it was like church was just, that was a no-brainer. That was a non-negotiable, is like a term I like to use. And we were going, and you're going to be a part of that. And that's just part of being a family. And sure, were there times where you were in church and you got 0 out of it? Of course, because you were just checked out. But like you said, you were constantly being bombarded with truth, and people investing in you. That's good. Is there anything, maybe a lesson, and this sort of the same question, but a lesson or something that they always said that just, you still remember it today, and maybe even you repeat it, or you say this with your kids, but just something that stuck out to you that it just resonated with you and still does to this day. Cliff, go first.
I don't know if there's like something they said that sticks with me, other than my dad has like 100 like East Texas like slangs, like awful dad joke type things. But like if you asked him like, how's your day going, he'd say, I'm on the top side of the soil sucking air, so I'm doing pretty good. Other than that kind of weird stuff, like it goes back to their like actions. Like with their actions of being present, it was like they were always kind. Like my parents lived out their kindness. Like if someone needed something, it was no question like that we were going to help them, and even if it took our last dollar, like that's what it was, because you take care of other people. Like loving on people meant you going after them, and that's probably one of the main reasons why there's 4 kids here now, because they did that with my brother Matt. And they saw a kid with need, and they're like, you're just going to be a part of us now, so really it was a lot of nonverbal. It was just living out that kindness, how we treat others. And I say that to Emma now, even though she's only 3, like I constantly have to tell her, you know, we have to be kind. Like if you're going to be anything in life, be kind. I say that, she probably doesn't understand what I'm saying, but she hears me say, if you're going to be something, be kind.
That's cool.
And it's absolutely through their actions that have taught me that.
That's awesome. And just so people know, Matt, like when did y'all first meet Matt?
Matt, it was our junior year, so that was 2000. Matt, we met him. He moved to Allen. Just a bad, just sad events happened in his life. But my parents we became close friends. Me and Matt became close friends, and they took him in as another son. And then, I think I'm horrible because I don't remember. He's going to beat me up for it. 2 years ago, we adopted him. So he's now like legally my brother, and I love it. It's the best thing ever.
That's cool. That's cool. Elizabeth.
Things that stick out to me. Is that right? We're still on that?
Way to listen. No, I'm just kidding. Just things maybe that they said, just lessons that are just kind of, right. They're just embedded in your head because they just said it over and over. It was just something that was constant.
Right. Honesty was a big deal to my dad. Like you could do anything wrong in the world, but if you lied about it, that's when it got real bad. So and that has carried over, that all through my life, like that carried over to school and friends. And so I wasn't a very good liar, although I tried with my parents a whole lot. And anyways, gosh, there's so much. They're gonna see this and think I didn't learn anything from them because I'm going blank. But no, just to honesty was a big deal, and then just to be genuine and real too, like authentic. I know that's like not new anymore, but like a newer word that wasn't a popular word when we were growing up. But they would kind of, I forget the phrase they would use, but they'd call us out when we were being fake. And so anyways,
cool.
That was big in our house too.
I remember.
I guess that's honest.
Yeah. Go ahead, Cliff.
I'll say this. I remember Peggy, she always talked about the bumblebee, like because the bumblebee's not supposed to fly. Is this right, Elizabeth?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. Oh yeah. Scientifically, they're too big for their little wings.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they
do it anyways.
So what does it mean?
Yeah.
Go talk to Peggy. You'll find out.
I'm sorry, I missed the.
It means you buy bees for Peggy for Christmas. No, they do the impossible. God made them perfect the way they are. Yes. And
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now I get it. I'm sorry. It's late. Yeah. We had to do this like at 9:30 at night because Elizabeth apparently leads a very party life, and so.
Yeah.
I'm surprised I haven't had 3 children come jump in on this call already. So.
All right, something you would go back and tell your teenage self right now. You know, go back 15, 16 years old regarding your parents. And maybe another way to say it is, what's something that they did back then that just drove you absolutely bananas, but right now you totally see the wisdom in it, and you probably, maybe even you do it now. So you can answer one or both, or maybe they're the same question. I don't know, but go ahead. Elizabeth, you first.
I would definitely go back and tell myself, your parents' goals are genuinely to protect you and are for your best interests. Like, quit trying to skirt around them, quit trying to lie to your parents to look like you obeyed the rules, quit trying to fight it, and just obey them, because you will avoid a lot of stupidness and a lot of drama and pain if you just obey them and know that they love you and that it's for your best interest. That's hands down what I would tell myself.
Yeah. Cliff?
I would tell myself to allow myself to have more grace for them. Parents, like the kids, they have everything figured out. But like now, especially now that I have a little one, like we don't know what we're doing. Like nobody knows what they're doing. And so it's like, I look back, and even though I was the third kid, like like I was also the first kid they had that like moved through the kind of the digital age. And so like even though I was the third, I was the first kid that dealt with all this stuff like in school and in my life. And so they had no idea. They were the parents dealing with the outcome of their kids knowing more than them about computers and all this other stuff. And so they had no idea. And so just allow myself to have more grace for them when I don't think they did something right, or if I got mad because of a rule that they put in place for me or something like that.
Right. Does anything come to mind when you think about that other question of what is something that they did back then that just absolutely drove you bananas? Like you hated it, but now looking back, you see the wisdom in it. Cliff?
I wouldn't say I hated it, but one thing was when my dad, like he went to camp with the youth. Like my dad was more involved with than anyone I knew with youth. And then when I left, I think he was like, I'm done. He's like, peace out. But so my dad, like I never got to go to camp just as a student without parents around. Like I don't know what that's like even to this day. And I look back at that, and it wasn't that I hated it, but it was kind of like, man, I just wish I could be like some of these other kids, you know? But I look back at it and I realize, like, again, it goes back to that showing, like, my dad made it a priority to love on kids. Like, he made it a priority to love on the next generation of believers. And it's one of the most powerful things he could have done. But at the time, I was like, just give me a week so I can just go do something. So. Sorry, Dad.
No, I'll never forget that camp at Hardin Simmons where Bill Kapka had a shirt for every day. And on Monday, he had a shirt that said Monday. And then the next day he walked out and it said Tuesday.
Oh, yeah. We still talk about that. We still talk about that. Yeah.
Elizabeth, something you look back and maybe you weren't really a big fan of, but now you totally see the wisdom in it.
Right. My answer actually is exactly the same as Cliff's. That I used to fight with my dad about being at everything, all the youth trips every Wednesday night. And I think I finally wore him down. Like, I don't know that he came, I don't know by the time you got there if he was still coming every Wednesday night, but like he finally one time came to me, he's like, I'm not here for you. Like, even though I do think he was, which is good. He said, I'm here because these other kids need an adult in their life. And, we went through like several years of not really having a consistent youth pastor. So I think probably, the Kapkas and my parents and a bunch of other parents were extra involved in that time. But I'm so thankful because that let us know a bunch of adults, like I remember sitting in Sunday school with Bill and Kathy. But anyways, so yeah, I used to roll my eyes and get so annoyed at him being at everything and school stuff too. Like he had to be the chaperone for every school thing. But now looking at it, I see the wisdom in one, being able to be an influence if I needed it at that situation, but two, that's how he served. That's how he loved on people and he let the Lord use them in those settings. But
so this will guess kind of be my last question, but and it wasn't so surprise, it wasn't on the list. But what would you say to parents right now? Because I realize you're both parents, so this seems kind of weird, but again, we're kind of you're looking back. So maybe something that you would say to your parent, let's use that language. Like if you were going to go back as a 16-year-old, something that you wish you could have said to your parents that maybe would have helped you a little more, right? Just something that you wish you could have communicated back then, but you didn't really know how, or you weren't even sure what to communicate. But because I think sometimes parents need to hear messages of, hey, not necessarily ease up because we need rules, but, hey, take it easy here or be gentle here. Does that make sense? Because, sometimes, because I think as parent, I know me, I get a little worried. I can get a little freaked out. I get a little worried, but I just need someone to say, hey, calm down. It's going to be okay. And it's not always best if like my kids say that to me, because then that makes me upset. But I just need to hear. So what message would you have for parents who are walking through, as a former teenager, what would you say to parents who are walking through those years with their teenagers right now? Whoever wants to go.
think I would say, and I know teenagers can put up blocks for this of not really wanting to spend time, but I think I would say don't stop. I'm going to talk as I'm the 16-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
Don't stop trying to spend time with me.
Mm.
If I give you attitude or if I block you, ask me again. And don't give up that battle. If you're picking your battles, don't let that be your battle. And when it comes to the Lord, like walk with the Lord with me. Like, even though I'm learning about quiet times and all this stuff, like show me that you're learning and like open the Bible with me so that I'm, because if I'm doing it by myself, which is good, but like I may doubt if I'm doing it right, or I may just skim over and blow that section off or whatever. So don't stop pursuing me, if that's the right word.
That's good.
And walk the walk with me. Like, I'm still in your home. I'm still your child. I still need to learn from you, especially about spiritual stuff. And in that process, you're going to grow too. The parents are going to grow in their faith because we don't all have it figured out, which is what we just said earlier.
Yeah.
And what a treasure to like learn those spiritual truths together. Like, that's cool. Anyway.